Creating resources. Resources are a great method to use to prevent any double booking or overbooking of things such as your facial rooms, waxing beds, or pedicure bowls. In order to create your resources, you're going to navigate to Manager, Admin, Employee/Student. And the first step here is going to be to create a job or a course for these resources. I already have facial room, pedicure bowl resources created, so we're going to work on creating the manicure stations. We're going to go ahead and click Update Jobs or Courses, and it's going to give us a list of all of our active jobs and courses that we have. We're going to click Add, and we're going to go ahead and set up this resource. So we're going to name these manicure stations. You want to make sure you give it a name that is going to make sense to you and the rest of your staff if anybody else comes in here and sees this information or is setting up additional resources in the future. Can perform services, we're going to say yes. This is what is going to allow it to show up on your appointment book. It's not a student and it's not an instructor, so we're going to leave those as no, but it is a resource. And by marking this as yes, this is how the system will know that it is a resource that needs to be displayed available to be associated with your services. This next step is important. The button position indicates to the system where you want it to show up within your appointment book. If you don't select a button position, it won't display it on the top button categories of your appointment book. I'm going to select number 7 for this one. And we're going to go ahead and also make sure that we leave the show online as no. This of course only applies to you if you are using our online booking feature. If you're not using the online booking feature, you can ignore that. It's not going to have any effects. But if you are using it, make sure it is listed to no and then click Save. Once you have saved that resource type, basically that's the resource job that you've created, then we can come in here and basically add employees or add students for those specific number of stations that you have. You can see here that I already have number 1 facial room, number 2 facial room, and you can see that those are assigned to my job facial room resource. So we're going to do something similar here for manicure stations, and we're going to click New Employee or New Student, and we're going to go ahead and name this, we're going to do number 1 manicure station. I like to have the number before the name just so that it sorts them all before all of the rest of my names that I have in here, but it's completely up to you how you want to name your actual resources or your stations in here. Because the system is going to require a first name, last name, and phone number in order to actually save this, I'm going to make sure I split the name up between the first name and the last name, just like that. So I can have number 1 manicure as the first name, stations as the last name, and phone number, you can just utilize your location's phone number or any type of generic phone number in there. I'm going to use our tech support's phone number in this section there. Security level can remain as everyone, but on default job, this is where you're going to make sure that you are selecting that job that we just created. So I created manicure stations, so we're going to say yes. We're going to say yes to adding it to the grid here. And I always come back and remove any previous jobs that were assigned here. So if by default it assigns stylist or student, I'm going to come here and remove that line. And you don't need to fill in anything else in here. And we just click Save. And that's going to go ahead and save that manicure station. Now, I have number 1 manicure station and it's assigned to that specific resource. So if I needed to, of course, do this again, I can go to New. And now I'm going to say number 2. Because I have 2 manicure stations. And again, you can use any default number that you would want to use. You just want to make sure that the default job here is that resource job that you just created. So I'm going to look for my manicure stations, say yes here, and then come back and remove any previous defaulted jobs that were added there and save. And so now essentially I have 2 manicure stations set up as a resource. And that is all the steps that you need to take in order to set up your resources. Now, one tip that I'm going to give you here is that before you go to your appointment book to check how this looks and before you associate your services to this, you exit out of your guest vision and then reopen it just to ensure that all of the new changes and new additions that you added to your resources take effect. Went ahead and exit out of our guest vision and reopened it, we can come to our appointment book and just make sure that everything looks the way that we want it to look. And you can see here that I have a button for manicure stations and I have my facial room button as well. You can easily just click on those. By default, they'll still be listed here like the rest of your students. But you can also just go facial rooms. So if you wanted to see what's currently booked on both your facial rooms, if you wanted to see what was currently booked on your manicure stations, you can do that there. So you'll be able to see those in that area. But these resources that we've created will not start working until they are associated with your services. And in order to associate them with your services, you want to go Manager, Admin, and Service. Now I'm going to look for example, a facial service that I have here. And when you find the service that you're looking for, of course, on the right-hand side, you're going to see it display all of the service information. You have a tab up here named Resource. If you do not see that tab, then you'll want to make sure that you update that setting within your guest vision. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. But in the resource section here, this facial, I'm going to let the system know that anytime this facial service gets booked, it needs to be added to the facial room resource. And what that's going to do, it's going to associate that service to the resource, and anytime it's booked, it's going to add it to those specific resources that you set up. And if something is already booked during that time, it's not going to let you book it. And you'll be able to see that in the appointment book as you are booking it. Again, if you don't see this resource tab within your service admin, you can change that setting within your settings tab. So Manager, Admin, Settings. And if you don't have access to this area for settings, you can always reach out to your management team or email our support team as well. You want to go to the drop-down list here of school. And within that section, you're going to be able to see the resource setting. So we have show resource on service admin, and you can see mine is set to true. If yours is set to false, you just want to go ahead and click update settings and select from that drop down list and make sure that it is set to true. Again, if at any point of any of these steps you get prompted with a password, you want to make sure you are entering your password. If your password does not work, you want to reach out to management, and they'll be the ones that have to take those steps or give you security access to do that. If you have any further questions or need additional help with your resources, please reach out to technical support. You can click the help tab within your Guest Vision software. That's going to show you additional help tools and tutorials, as well as provide you with the phone number.